This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Tapson, editor of the Horowitz Freedom Center's TruthRevolt.org with another Tapson moment for the Glazov Gang show. Today I'm going to follow up on the topic I spoke about last time, and I'll include that link below, and that is the radical left's war on masculinity. Last time I spoke in somewhat general terms about it, and in the process mentioned that American boys and young men are being indoctrinated in our schools to question, suppress, and even deconstruct their masculine nature. From kindergarten all the way through college, it is becoming the goal to teach our children and young people that masculinity is toxic and a danger to society, and thus it is necessary to purge it. As I mentioned previously, thanks to radical feminism, we already have a generation or two of young men, too many of whom are either confused about what it means to be a man, or who actively reject traditional aspects of manhood which are not in fact toxic, but are essential to being a good, responsible man, son, brother, husband, and father. Today I'm going to focus on university programs across the country that the radical left is creating in order to emasculate the Western male as part of its gender revolution. These classes claim to address toxic masculinity, but they are in fact simply re-education camps for the eradication of masculine energy and virtues. Let me begin by asking you to imagine the howls of social justice outrage if a major university's men's studies department, if that were even a thing, created a program for women to re-examine and deconstruct their toxic femininity. Or if a white studies department, again, if that were even a thing, launched a program for blacks to rethink and dismantle their toxic blackness. Or if the campus straight community hosted an event for LGBTs to reject their toxic sexuality and so on. The architects of such offensive programs would be tarred and feathered and run out of town, and rightly so. A culturally acceptable version of these scenarios, however, is precisely what is spreading on campuses across the country now. The Duke Men's Project, for example, hosted by the Duke University Women's Center, offers a 9-week program for male-identified students to address such toxic masculine issues as male privilege, patriarchy, the language of dominance, rape culture, pornography, and machismo. The Men's Project leadership team said that the goal is to create a safe space for male students in which to, quote, critique and analyze their own masculinity and toxic masculinities to create healthier ones, unquote. The program is to help men, quote, proactively deconstruct our masculinity, unquote. This program is patterned after a similar one at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which is co-sponsored and supported by the Carolina Women's Center. Its participants are asked to consider how masculinity plays a harmful influence in their lives. The goal of that program is, quote, to shift the culture of masculinity toward more nonviolent norms, unquote, suggesting that violence is the norm among men. On the other side of the country, Claremont College is hosting a masculinity and mental health event. Its organizers say, quote, masculinity can be extremely toxic to our mental health, both to the people who are pressured to perform it and the people who are inevitably influenced by it, unquote. So they're stating outright that masculinity is some sort of mental illness. Because masculinity, like whiteness, is considered a malignant quality today, it's culturally acceptable to openly discuss treating it or deconstructing it, if not eradicating it. So these workshops and programs are being hailed as admirable and necessary. Campus safe spaces ordinarily are considered retreats in which narcissistic students who have built their identity around a sense of minority victimhood can feel accepted by fellow narcissists and not be judged for who they are. But the safe spaces for these young men and these programs are precisely the opposite. They're seminars in which they're taught to publicly acknowledge their toxic nature and learn to shed themselves of it. It smacks of Marxist re-education camps. The editors of the Duke student newspaper who endorsed the Men's Project preemptively tried to reassure critics that it was not, quote, a re-education camp being administered by an oppressed group in the service of the feminization of American society, unquote. But that's exactly what it is. One of the Men's Project student leaders said, quote, the curriculum is about questioning how you can be accountable to feminism, to the women in your life, and to the larger community, unquote. Another one noted that he hopes the program will help participants undergo a process of deconstruction and reconstruction. A third one said he is excited that we are doing our own part to proactively deconstruct masculinity. This all sounds suspiciously like what the participants and supporters claim it is not, part of an ideological agenda to fundamentally transform masculine nature and create a genderless utopia of feminized men and masculinized women. The Duke editors insist that, quote, gender equality is not about bringing men down, but about lifting everyone up in order to create a more comfortable and enjoyable society for all, unquote. Well, that all sounds marvelous, but deconstruction is by definition a tearing down and not a lifting up. The Duke editors hasten to clarify that not all masculinity is bad or evil, nor is it inherently pernicious, as they put it. Toxic masculinity represents only a harmful, narrow band of the whole spectrum of masculinity, they say. And the Men's Project enables male students to come to terms with that harmful aspect of their nature in a space by men and for men. It's also a place, they put it, quote, for males to ask any questions about feminism, gender, and intersectionality that they have always wanted to ask, unquote. Well, I've never known a man or a male-identified individual who had always wanted to know more about feminism, gender, and intersectionality, but hey, I haven't been to college in many years, so I guess I graduated just in time. Elsewhere, the University of Wisconsin-Madison has initiated a 6-week program now in its second year called the Men's Project, which complains that, quote, men are socialized to believe they need to act a certain way to be accepted as masculine or have what it takes to be a man, unquote. The program is designed, quote, to empower men to better understand themselves, promote the advancement of gender equity, and raise consciousness in their communities, unquote. It's open only to men-identified students, and it, quote, operates on a transformative model of social justice allyship, unquote. The goal is to create a sense of security in vulnerability. Now, first of all, vulnerability in a man is not a virtue. Wives don't want more vulnerable husbands. They don't want unfeeling automatons, but they want strong partners they can trust not to fall apart when the going gets tough. Western civilization doesn't need more vulnerable men. Right now, it needs men of strength, courage, honor, and service who are emotionally and spiritually prepared to fight for their families, their homes, and their homeland. Instead of poisoning the minds of young men about their own nature, shaming them about a so-called rape culture that the vast majority aren't guilty of, diluting their strength and confidence, lecturing them that violence is always wrong, and I briefly talked about righteous violence last time, universities and society at large would be much better served by celebrating the virtues and the positive qualities of manhood. Boys and young men need the freedom to express their masculinity and the guidance and the inspiration of older male mentors who can help them channel their aggression constructively and guide them to aspire to the best nature of men. They won't get that in group therapy safe spaces under the disapproving supervision of women's centers and their feminized student proxies. Okay, more on the war on masculinity next time. Until then, this has been Mark Tapson for the Glazov Gang. Check out more of my work at marktapson.com, and please help support the Glazov Gang by donating at jamieglazov.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the Glazov Gang's YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Be seeing you.